I stood at the box door and looked in at the screaming calf. His belly was getting bigger. Daddy stood behind him with a knife between his teeth. He had the calf caught by the nose, and I thought that if Daddy wasn't doing this, that the calf would just float away. "This won't hurt him," he said as he wiped the knife on his sleeve, then stuck the tip of the blade into the belly of the calf. He made a small hole. A gush of air escaped. The calf began to relax and his belly shrunk. Daddy rubbed the cut with his fingers. "What's wrong with him?" I asked. The calf walked off and stood in the corner. He picked at some hay. The other calves came up and sniffed around him. "It's trapped gas," Daddy said. "Will he die?" "I'd rather he had a dose of scour. You can be unlucky if you miss it." "I'll keep an eye on him." "Good man. I'll get Billy to take a look." We went inside. Mammy made tea. Daddy scratched his nose and relaxed in his chair. "I'd better give that cut a wipe down with some Dettol," he said. "I can do it." "You're some man for one man." "What'll you give him?" Mammy asked. "Billy will have something. He's about later." Mammy looked over at me. "Show Daddy, will you? I'm sick of seeing you limping about." Daddy put his cup down. "I guess you'd better give us a gawk." I took off my left sock, lifted my foot into the air. Daddy got off his chair and caught my foot. He examined the toe close up. "It's not ready yet," he said. He glanced at Mammy. "I think we'll get him to the doctor next week. It's starting to get sore." "I'd say it's sore all right," he said. He touched the corner of my big toe. I pulled back. The pain was sharp. The toe was very red. A mix of pus and blood came out the side. "I told you to keep the V in it, but you don't listen." He took a deep breath and sat down, shaking his head. Mammy smiled at me, but I could see she agreed with him. "Keep it clean," he said, "and don't touch it with the scissors. You need to leave the nail grow out so the doctor can get at it." Billy came when Daddy was away. He was my uncle. He studied to be a vet but never qualified. He was used by every farmer about. He poured a pink mix into a bucket, added some hot water, then got the calf to drink it. I stood beside him. I've warned him before. He just needs to make sure he measures out the milk powder properly. Your father don't listen to no one, only himself. Would the calf have died? If no one spotted it, he would. He'd not be able to breathe. His lungs would have been crushed. He'll be okay now. He needs watching, but he'll be fine. Jesus, you ask a lot of questions. The hole where the knife went in was crusted over. He wiped it down with some Dettol. The calf bucked. He made too big a cut with the knife. He'll be on to me complaining when it gets infected. I cycled down to the King's River to meet Andy. We skimmed stones and tried to build a dam, but the river was too wide. The water kept breaking through. After a while, we threw big stones into the deep end. They made a big splash before they floated to the bottom. "Want to kill some rats?" Andy asked. We went to the corn store behind the old creamery, a large green cylinder rotted with rust. I followed Andy up the ladder, in through the small hatch. He jumped down onto the mouldy corn. It grew mouldier every year. The creamery had closed down years ago. "Come on, jump." "I hate rats," I said. "Fucking chicken." Our voice echoed. I looked up at the cloudy sky through the opening at the top. Andy walked around. He kicked in the holes on the surface of the corn. "Now there'll none come out," I said. He took the butt of a cigarette out of his coat pocket. He looked up at me, then lit it. "You want a drag?" "Where'd you get it?" "I robbed it." "No," I said. I tried the end of one of Mammy's once. Daddy smelt it and cut the arse off me. Andy finished the cigarette. He flicked it to the ground and started to run around in circles. "You're an idiot," I said. I spotted a rat squeezed through a small hole in the cylinder. It had a long stringy tail. "Look, there's a big one." The rat came in a few feet like he's blind. His ears twitched as he sniffed around. Andy jumped. He reached out with his hands, but the rat ran like lightning out the hole again. "I nearly had him," he said. I felt his tail slip through my fingers. We crossed the river, made our way to our bikes. My toe started to hurt. "Show us," Andy said. "No, come on." "No, fuck off." "Will I catch it?" "Yeah." I took off my shoe. The corner of my sock was soaked with blood. I pulled the sock off. The toe was the reddest I'd ever seen it. Nail cut right into the raw flesh. That's fucking gross. I know. He jumped on his bike. You're contagious, you diseased leper, he shouted as he cycled off. Mammy promised me a new pair of shoes for school. She drove me to town and I got a nice pair. When we got home, Billy was drinking tea with Daddy. They looked over at me when I walked into the kitchen. You fancy a pup? No, I gave it up. Billy laughed. How can you give it up? You're only young. He won't go back because they never played him, Daddy said. Nothing wrong with keeping a bench warm, Billy said. You'll get your chance. No, it's a load of shite. They both laughed. Billy finished his tea. He leaned back on the chair. I suppose it is, he said. I watched television. I could hear them getting drunk in the kitchen. They were very loud. Daddy kept coming in to go to the drinks press. They were trying different whiskies. Daddy had a large collection. After a while, Mammy came in. She stood at the door for a minute, then walked over and turned down the volume on the television. Come in for a minute, she said. I walked into the kitchen. Daddy and Billy stared at me. Mammy lit up a cigarette by the cooker. Daddy stood up. He threw back what was left in his glass, then steadied himself. Give us a look at your toe, he said. No way. Go on, show your uncle. Everyone was staring at me. I took off my sock. Billy kneeled down. He took a good look at it. Jesus, that's really cutting in, he said. Daddy leaned on the table with his arms crossed. You think it's ready? Ah, yeah, she'll come out. Daddy looked at Mammy. Can you get a nail, scissors and tweezers? I placed my foot back on the ground. I glanced at Mammy. She quenched her cigarette in the ashtray and left the room. Billy sat down. He took a swig from his glass. Podrick, I think you'd better get the young lad a drop of whiskey. Daddy took a glass out of the press. He poured a small Jameson into it. He walked over and handed it to me. Get that down, yeah. It's a 20-year-old. Special vintage. I thought I was getting it out at the doctor's. Drink that up and you'll be right as rain. You won't feel a thing. I held the glass in my hand and smelt it. I'd smelt it before. You'd always pull the caps off bottles to get a good sniff when you'd nothing to be doing. It burnt my nose the way it always did. I took a sip, let it slide down my throat. My eyes watered. I started to cough. They both laughed. Drink up, get it down ya. I drank it back. My head felt warm. Mammy walked back in. She handed him a scissors and tweezers. I'll check on the calves. She touched my father's arm. He looked up at her. If he's not able for it, I'll bring him to the doctor tomorrow. We're not paying for some doctor when Billy can do it. She left the room. I heard the back door close. Billy stood up. Right, lie back there and relax, he said. I sat back into the armchair. Billy pulled a chair over, then sat down. This won't hurt, will it? Billy caught my leg. He placed it carefully on his knee. He studied the toe for a moment, moving his head closer to get a better look. I won't lie to you. This will hurt like hell. You'll cry like a baby. Don't do it then. You'll hurt, but tomorrow you'll feel like a new man. Daddy knelt down in front of me. It was the way he knelt when he said the rosary. This'll make a man of you, Jim. He held down my stomach with his arms. I couldn't move. When I looked, I saw Billy had my foot pressed down onto his knee. He touched my toe and it stung. Leave it, Billy, leave it. Tears welled up. I tried to kick my foot away, but it didn't budge. Billy was as strong as an ox. Shh! Calm down, boy. We're not even started yet. He had my toe between his fingers. He brought the scissors down, slowly cutting downwards at the corner of the nail. A sharp pain went through my foot, all the way up my leg. I could see the scissors. It looked like it was a long way into my toe. Billy stopped. He took a drink of his whiskey. You're doing good, lad. There's plenty of nail down there. You'll be fine in no time. He started to cut again, getting deeper. Blood squirted out. Billy removed the scissors. Throw us a tea towel there, Podrick. Daddy stood up. He grabbed one from the table and threw it to Billy. He wiped the blood away from the toe on his fingers. Then he pressed the corner of the tea towel into the red flesh until a large burst of pus came out. "That's the badness out now. Home road from here on in," he said. "I bet you're feeling better already." "No," I said. "Just one little bit more," Billy said, holding Podrick. "He might jump with this." Daddy leaned on my stomach. He kept his eyes from me. Billy grabbed the nail with the tweezers and pulled down. He stopped when he got to the bottom of the toe, then turned the tweezers slightly. He pulled the nail into the red flesh. Slowly he began to draw it out. For a moment I thought he was cutting my toe off. I couldn't see it with all the blood coming out. Tears streamed down my face. I gripped the cushion. I looked down at my father's hands. He had big hairy hands, and when I looked back at Billy, he had covered my foot with a tea towel. "There we go. Came out easy in the end," he said. Billy held the tweezers up to the light. He looked down at me. "God, you're as white as a ghost." They stood up to examine the tweezers. I brought my foot up to my stomach. "That's some nail," Daddy said. "Look at how thick it is, twisted into itself. Surprised he could walk at all." Billy showed it to me. The nail was big and long, coiled at the bottom like melted wax from a candle. Mammy walked in. She rubbed my head. "Ruined my good tea towel, I see." They all laughed. Daddy poured me another whiskey.